The book of Devarim is fascinating in that it is a book that is Moshe's speech, and it is also divine. It is also a book of the Torah. How are we supposed to understand these two things together? And this question is sharpened when we see the ways in which different narratives and different mitzvot appear in the book of Devarim than they do earlier. An obvious example is that of the spies, but there are significant examples when it comes to the mitzvot as well. So what is this? How do we understand these differences? And they're both from God and from Moshe. And the Sfat Emet has a brilliant insight. And the Sfat Emet says, look, the first 4 books of the Torah are the Torah Shebechsav, the Written Torah. When they were going to go into the land of Israel, that would be the Torah Shebaal Peh. What he means is God is no longer dictating directly. At that point, when we're living our real lives, we take the Torah that God has given us and we translate and apply it into what that means in the lives that we are living. We take ownership, we interpret, we apply. That is the Torah Shebaal Peh. That is once they get into the land and have to live the messy real life of existence. Devarim, he says, is the Shar HaMechabram. It is the gate that connects Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebaal Peh. They're at the cusp of entering into the land. They're looking towards it. They're anticipating what that reality will be. And Moshe here is already beginning the interpretation of the Torah and the application of it. And it is therefore a Torah Shebaal Peh, but it is included in the Torah, and it is a Torah Shebechsav as well. One example where you see this interpretation and what it means to be thinking from the perspective of the people is the difference of Shabbat. Shabbat in the Aseret HaDibros earlier in Shemot is to remember that God created the world, a theological point, whereas Shabbat here, in the Aseret HaDibros as they're told here, is about letting our slaves rest, letting our animals rest. It's about a humanistic point, it's about a social justice point, and these types of differences can be found between earlier parts of the Torah and the book of Devarim. So it is an act of interpretation, of application, but here it became part of Torah Shebechsav, and maybe to teach us that our continued engagement with interpretation is also a continuation because it's anchored in the Torah Shebechsav. And this is the type of responsibility of a rabbi, of a posek. As I mentioned, we're dealing with issues of disability in the yeshiva. How do we take the Torah, apply it, the halacha, to real people, real challenges? This is our responsibility as Jews and as poskim for Klal Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom.